So welcome to Nobska Point Lighthouse. We're really proud of this property. There's been a lighthouse in here since 1829, and we're very lucky to have such a gorgeous view of Cape Cod and the islands from here. I'm going to start off by pointing out where we are geographically. Most of the people who visit us are not from the area. I would say 85% of the people are from either out of the country or out of the state, or certainly away from Cape Cod. So if we look out here, we're on a point of land that goes 270 degrees around, all water surrounded. Right there is Woods Hole Pass and Great Harbor in Woods Hole. Buzzards Bay is on the other side, and there's an island chain there called the Elizabeth Islands. There's 14 to 16 islands, depending on how big an island you define. The last two are public islands. One is called Penakees, which is owned by the state of Massachusetts. It's kind of like a bird sanctuary. And then there's Cuttyhunk, which is a small fishing village. Cuttyhunk has about 30 people in the winter for its full-time population. More in the summer as the tourists are there. The rest of the islands are owned by the Forbes Family Trust. The Forbes family has had that property for over 120 years, and they're all private. They don't allow any development, and they will allow you on the beaches. But other than that, it's a pristine wilderness. Vineyard Sound is here, and Martha's Vineyard is over here. A lot of people ask, I didn't realize Martha's Vineyard was so close. How far are we away from Martha's Vineyard? And the nearest point right here is 6 miles from Martha's Vineyard. If you really look, we have a great day down there. You can see Chappaquiddick Island off of Edgartown, which is really on the horizon and the last point of land that you can see. And that's about 14 miles away. We can't see Nantucket from here because of the curvature of the earth. So as I had mentioned, 1829, there was a lighthouse on this property. Because we get a lot of weather exposure, that property, the lighthouse and the building had to be replaced. And in 1876, they have this lighthouse keeper's house, which is the house that's on the right here. There's actually two homes here. The original home is the one here, and if you look at the roof structure, you can see how they don't match. So they added a second family keeper's house on the left here in 1905 because the duties of the lighthouse keepers were quite busy and they needed help. The tower itself has gone in 1876, and other than the electricity and a few minor changes on this cupola here, it's the same as it was in 1876. So with that, I'd like to let you see the inside of the tour, the first tour level, and there's another guide in there that can help you out. Thank you.
Okay, welcome to Nobska Tower. This tower was built in 1876. The original was a house with a little tower on it that was built in 1856, but that didn't prove adequate. It looked like this. So this was built as 4 pieces of iron set on each other with 3 layers of brick. And this is the original brick. I think it's probably the most beautiful part of the whole tower. It's just smooth and curved and absolutely lovely. The tower is 14 feet in diameter at this level. It goes up to 10 feet in diameter at the top. The tower is 40 feet high. It has the lighthouse room is on top of that, and then we're on a hill, so we are 87 feet above sea level. The lighthouse keeper had to come in every day, go up 33 steps and 8 steps of the ladder at the top and carry oil. We had 10 wicks in the lighthouse that lit the light, and he would go up with the oil every day, every 3 hours, and keep the light lit. The whole thing was electrified in 1919, and so it was no longer necessary to go up with oil. Also, his job was to count the boats, and one year there were at least 26,000 boats that were counted. Generally, it was about 20,000 boats a year that went by here. I figure he never slept. Just to show you where we are, this is where we are in Nobska Point. Before the canal was built, people went from Boston to New York. This was one of the busiest passages in the world. Next to the English Channel, it was one of the busiest. He also had to take care of 9 channel markers that were outside, and he had to rescue people if they needed rescuing. So he was a pretty busy guy, and they did add a second lighthouse keeper and built a second house back in the early 1900s, or 1905. So he had a little bit of help. The light in the lighthouse is a 4th order Fresnel lens, which was developed in 1888. The first Fresnel lens was a 5th order light, which was a bit smaller. So when you go up, you will see this light, and you'll hear more about that.
Well, welcome to the chart room at Nobska Lighthouse. This is the room that the light keeper and or his family would come to and prepare the fuel and the wicks or candles that were used in the 1800s to signify the light or show the light. In the early times, they used whale oil, and then shifted over in 1888 to kerosene. This room would be the prep room. The light keeper, his wife or his children, depending, because it was a family operation, would come in here and prepare that material, or those materials, and then take them up top to the lantern room, which you will see shortly. The other purpose of this room was to log the number of vessels passing through Vineyard Haven Sound and Nantucket Sound. As was mentioned below, thousands of vessels came through here, transited through here, en route to Boston or other parts of New England, and round out about the Cape. Looking out through the porthole is Vineyard Sound. To my right, looking out again the porthole, is Nantucket Sound. Across from us, directly across from us, is Martha's Vineyard Island, and if you look straight down, you'll see a point of land. That is Gay Head, or as it's called today, Akina Point, or more popularly known as Gay Head Light. There's a lighthouse down there, and if you look real closely, you'll see that lighthouse flash every so many seconds. To my right is Nantucket Sound, and again, if you look out through that part of the porthole, you'll see the other end of Martha's Vineyard Island. You'll also be able to see the approach or entrance to Vineyard Haven Harbor. Again, to my left is a chart. The chart shows Buzzards Bay and Vineyard Haven Sound. If you look at the chart closely, you'll see where we are in relationship to the rest of the bay, Buzzards Bay and Vineyard Sound. You'll see Woods Hole Transit, the Woods Hole transit area, and just to the right of that on the chart is Nobska Light, which is where we are. There is a sector mark on the chart, and that denotes a shoal area. So if you are transiting from Nantucket Sound through this area and you have that red light on your bow, it's an indication that you're headed towards shallow water or the shoals. And obviously you will want to alter your course either port or starboard depending on your draft. Across from us, as I said, is Martha's Vineyard Island. It's a very large island, and on the opposite side of it is the Elizabeth Islands. At some point further down to your right, you'll see a small white speck. That's Tarpaulin Cove Lighthouse, and that is an active lighthouse serviced by the U.S. Coast Guard. To my right, if you look very closely, you'll see another lighthouse, and that is the lighthouse called Vineyard Haven Light, and that denotes the entrance to Vineyard Haven Harbor. Looking at the chart behind me, you'll get a better view of the red sector area and the shoals. Otherwise, you're ready to go up to the lantern room.
Well, good morning. Let me be the 4th person today to welcome you to Nobska Light and to the lantern room. This is the culmination of everything you've seen before. This is where all the action is. You can see, if you will, this Fresnel lens here, which is almost 150 years old. One of the reasons why we ask you down below in the chart room not to touch the lens is because we can't replace this anymore. It was built in 1888 over in France, and the formula for putting the chemicals together to build this has been lost, so it's irreplaceable. What happens if you touch the lens, the oil from your fingers eventually dries out. The lens gets very hot, not only from the outside sun, but also from the energy from the bulbs inside. It could crack the lens. And as I said, it's irreplaceable. So please don't touch the lens while you're up here and or on the way back down. Other than that, please also notice that there is a blinking light on the inside of this lens. Look closely and you'll find that there are actually 4 bulbs in there. Only one is blinking at a time. It actually blinks at a frequency of once every 6 seconds, and I'll tell you why that is significant here in a moment. But those bulbs, which are 250 watts each, only last a couple of 3 weeks at the most. When they burn out, the next one rotates up in its place, and a signal is sent over to the Coast Guard, so they come and replace the bulb. We, Friends of Nobska Light, do not replace the bulb. The Coast Guard still has the responsibility for maintaining the actual light. So, again, when the bulb burns out, the next one goes up into place and then they come and replace it. Because there are 4 bulbs there, they may not necessarily come the same day, the next day, or even the same week. But they do come and replace them. But what happens, if you will, when the power goes out? And that does happen here in Falmouth. When the power goes out, we have an emergency backup. If you look out on the catwalk here, you see a portable lens, not portable lens, a smaller lens sitting on the railing of the catwalk out here. And it has a bulb in it that is operated actually by a battery. And this is a generator that helps maintain that. When the power comes back on, that goes off, this comes back on. Most of the time the power isn't off all that long, but sometimes longer, depending upon the kind of storm. Also, while you're looking out at the catwalk, notice the finials on the railing. They're little miniature lighthouses. There are only 2 other lighthouses besides this that has those kinds of finials on there. Over here in the vineyard and out in Maine. Don't know the name of the lighthouse that's happening in Maine. But also, the other thing I wanted to point out to you, if you will, is that we have this red panel here. Now, if you're out on a boat, out there in the middle of the sound somewhere, and it's nighttime, you see a red light blinking instead of a white light blinking, it's warning you that you're approaching shoals. You want to move your boat so that you're either to the left or the right so that you see the white light. The red light blinking, because it's going through this panel, is a warning to you that you're about to come onto a shoal. And that backup lantern that's out on the railing that we looked at here a moment ago also has the red panel. The thing is, though, this major Fresnel lens, which is about 2.5 feet high, came here in 1888. This is actually the second Fresnel lens. We had a smaller one when we first started out in 1856. 1876, we put this in, and in 1919, we actually electrified the whole thing. So that's actually good. But you can see this lens, the purpose of this Fresnel lens in the first place is to concentrate the beam. Those bulbs in there are 250 watts. Ordinarily, without a lens like this, you wouldn't see them very far. But because the Fresnel lens is able to concentrate the light and focus it out there into the water, it can be seen 12 miles. Only see a couple of miles with the lantern that's out there. And I think that's pretty much it. Have a nice day.